Okay, I think it's time to get started. So welcome everyone to week 3 of our 4-week focus class. And again, if you recall, this is based on the book Peak Mind by Amishi Jha. In fact, we're having her come as a speaker to a Smilo Wellness Workshop in June 16th. 4 o'clock. So you might want to mark your calendars and just save the date if you want to hear more about her directly. I'm looking forward to myself. I'll be moderating that discussion with her. And I've listened to a couple of her other things. She's done some pretty high profile things like on 10% Happier. And she's been on Brene Brown's podcast. And I think it's going to be great. So we'll be publicizing that, and that one will not be on LMS. That one will be, there's a separate sign up registration. So look for there'll be an intranet article and some notices and things like that. So keep your eyes open for that. Yeah, it'll be virtual. Well, it'll be live, but it'll be by Zoom. We're still doing those on Zoom, and we are recording those as well. So those are be available for watching later too. All right, so that's the commercial for the day, but it is free, of course. And as I said, I know some of you got in the book. The book is quite good. The more I get into it, the more I learn. So some of what I'm presenting here is directly related to the book. Some of it is related to some of the other classes I've done. So today we're focusing on our thoughts, really. And the main practice we're going to do is called the River of Thoughts, which is from the book. But in a lot of our mindfulness classes, we do also focus on, we turn our attention to what's going on in the mind, to mental activity, including our thoughts. So, and that's why I titled this Stories, Decentering, and Our Thoughts.
Okay, good.
I'm going to mute everybody.
Okay.
And yeah, let me also say before I get into things, if you want to ask a question, feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat. That's fine. Oh, and also, if you want know your numbers credit, just put that in there as well into the chat that you want. Yeah, somebody just did that. Great. KYN credit. Thank you very much. Good. And so I titled it Stories and Decentering because, if you really begin to pay attention to your thoughts, and you probably have noticed what has been distracting you in the past couple of weeks as we shine the flashlight and we looked at the body scan, you realize that there's an awful lot going on up there that pulls our attention, that can distract us. And we build up stories or narratives or this internal commentary about what's going on. And so that's the next skill, really, is to begin to pay attention to that and to see how we can decenter, or the other word you might use is decouple from those kinds of things that we get hooked onto. So first, let's just do a quick check-in. Where's your attention now? And again, just sort of turning inward as a kind of a quick pause practice, focusing on what's going on now in your attention. What are you focusing on right now? Might be my voice and the slides, but it might be some other things too that left over from your busy morning, or other things that are kind of on your mind, on the back of your mind or the side of your mind, that's hijacking your attention. So what's on your mind now? Where's your attention? Just pause. I'll stop talking for a moment. And again, this is just one of those quick little practices that you can do to continually check in with yourself, sort of as an informal practice to help support this awareness of where we are focusing our attention. And if you remember from the first class, we used the flashlight image, and that was where we kept our focus on the breathing. You can also do it on, a body part, for example, or a sound or a sensation, if the breath is not something you want to put your attention onto. But, and I do want to ask you in a minute or two how your past week was. Last week we did the body scan, and so I have a couple of introductory practices here that I would like to do first. But I do want to ask how your week has been and what you thought about the body scan, and were you able to practice that and, as a way to hone your focus a little bit more. All right, so what we're really doing here with focus is we're increasing our concentration. And I think that's why a lot of people signed up. In fact, the more I read, the more I realize, that it's, there's, a concentration crisis in a sense. There was another good podcast on 10% Happier. If you want to go and search that out, and the guest talked all about attention. In fact, there were 2 presentations on attention, if you want to learn more or listen to more. And, it's just very, very clear that there are so many things that pull or hijack our attention these days. And so, really I applaud you all for being here as an attempt to increase that focus. So in traditional mindfulness meditations, there are other ways that you can increase your concentration as well. And this one that I put up here, just the counting. So we're going to do that in a minute. And what we're going to do is we're going to count our breaths up to 10 or as far as we can get. And we're just simply in the same way that we did before. Notice when there's a distraction. Notice when we've stopped focusing on the counting and our thoughts have taken over, or a sound, or, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And that's one way. So let's do that. Let's jump right into that. So just take a position that's comfortable, where you can be balanced as you sit. Feet flat on the floor usually is recommended, back relatively straight, but also you want to be comfortable so you can relax. And the other thing that's, I think, important to these, focus and concentration sometimes imply that we're, kind of gritting our teeth, or we're like really having to, put effort into this. And so if you feel yourself straining or trying too hard, focusing too much, it's just going to give you a headache, probably. Lighten up. We don't need to do that, really. We can do this with kind of a light attention. Okay, so just a little bit of a guideline there. So sitting in this position, you can choose to either close your eyes or keep them slightly open with a downward gaze. Whatever works for you, but you might try, doing both and just see what you prefer for these focus and concentration kinds of practices. So we'll just begin with centering ourselves and grounding ourselves in the body. And all that really means is feeling the body sitting here, being aware of the chair beneath us, supporting us, the touch points of the chair that your body makes with it, your feet on the floor. And just trying to focus in on the body as it's here right now, just accepting it as it is. And within the body, even as we're still, you may notice the breath. And so bring your attention now to focus in on the breath. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to count, as I said. So we'll do it this way. So as you breathe in, say in, and as you breathe out, say one. And then as you breathe in, and then as you exhale, two. So that we'll count as far as you can go up to 10. And I'll lead you for the first section of that, and then I'll leave you with some silence to try it on your own. And the idea is to see, where what happens with your mind. If you're distracted, what was it that distracted you? What thought popped up, or what, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it's, things are going to happen. So, but when you notice that, just notice what it was that pulled your attention, and then start back again at one. Okay, so let's begin. So with the breath in, one, in, two, in, three, in, four. And just keep that on your own. Just keep practicing that. And just be aware of when you get pulled from the counting. I was pulled about the count of 4 when I restarted. There were some sounds in the background, and that pulled my attention. So I'm going to start again. So just keep doing that for yourself. And when you do get pulled away from the counting, this is actually an opportunity. This is the magic moment. So don't criticize or judge this. This is really an opportunity to refocus and start again. Okay? So in, one, and just keep going. And you might think you're doing well if you get to 9 or 10, and you are. I'm not taking that away from you, but that's not really the goal. The goal is to see what was it that distracted you. You might even briefly label it. Maybe it was, a to-do item, or what you're going to have for your next meal, or some meeting you're going to have later, or that you had this morning. So noticing what distracted you, and then let it go and start counting again. That's the magic moment. That's the crux of the practice, to refocus every time you get distracted. Shine that flashlight again back on the number 1, and then just keep going. Now at this point, we're going to transition into another similar practice. And if you want to open your eyes, I've just put up a different slide. We're going to use what's called mental noting. We were sort of doing that already, but now what we're going to do is we're going to mentally note in on the in breath and out on the out breath. So in and out. Or you can do particular words. So you can do calm, for example, on the in breath, and ease on the out breath, or you can choose whatever words you like, really. So it's up to you. But we'll start, And I'll guide you through, and we'll just do in and out to start, and then we'll transition to some words after that. So continuing with your mindful focus and with your breath. By the way, you can just let the breath be natural and relaxed. You don't have to regulate the breath as we're doing this. Whatever rhythm is good for you is perfectly fine. So in, out, in, out, and just keep doing that so that it helps to kind of train your attention. And just continue to feel the breath as you're doing that. So as you say in, feel the in breath, out, feel the out breath, okay? And again, just see what happens. Just notice whatever happens in your mind, whatever distracts you or doesn't, just keep doing that. And if you like, you can change your focus to words. So we'll start with, on the in breath, calm, and on the out breath, ease. So calm, ease, calm, ease. And feel free to insert whatever words you like. Okay, a few more cycles of that, and then we'll bring that to a close. So another few breaths, either in and out or calm and ease. And if you've had your eyes closed, feel free to open them. And, let me know. Give me some feedback. You can write in the chat what that was like for you. Sometimes people find that helpful. Sometimes they don't. So I'm just trying to give you some alternative practices. You can keep doing the flashlight, or you can use one of those as a way to strengthen your attention. And this could be something that you can do throughout the week as a quick practice. It doesn't have to be for long, and to really just see where does your mind go when you do this. Yeah, so somebody said, I found it helpful. Good. Calming and relaxing, 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 relaxing. Good. So that's great. I'm glad it's relaxing, but also I want you to notice what's going on in the mind. So don't just zone out, although you might just notice zoning out and even label that. Oh, they're zoning out. I'm really kind of spacing out, not being aware of anything in particular. And that's kind of when you're really lost in thought. And that's the second part of this. We're going to get into that. My mind distracted, but I'm able to bring my focus back. Good. That's the essential practice here. Okay. And we're beginning to now become aware of our thinking and the idea that thoughts are kind of random things sometimes. And we're going to talk quite a bit about thoughts. But before we do that, I also want to bring up this last image of the flashlight again. And another practice that we can do is with like the body scan, you can use the flashlight image to shine the flashlight as you scan through the body. That's one way to bring them together. But another one that I came across recently is you can use the image of focusing narrowly and specifically on your lower belly, for example. So shine the flashlight, and try this with me right now. Close your eyes again, or turn inward, and shine the flashlight on your lower belly, a few inches below the navel. Just with your attention, just feel into that area there. And as you breathe, simply feel the slight movement of your lower belly. Kind of there's a slight stretching and relaxing as you breathe in and out. So just really pay attention to that movement, keeping your flashlight and your attention trained there. So that you really have kind of a laser focus on this one particular area of the lower belly. And again, if something should pull your attention, don't worry about that, but notice what it was. You know, was it a sound, or was it a body sensation, or was it a thought? And if it was any one of those, you can even just label that and then come back to that focus on the lower belly and feel that slight movement of the breath right there. Now, if you have a hard time feeling that, you can choose another area to really focus in on. It doesn't have to be there, but that's an area that of the breath that kind of a little more remote of an area. Okay, so just try that for a few more cycles and then we'll stop. And if you want, as we close, you can open up now and bring the floodlight of your awareness to feel the whole body now. So open up, feel the whole body sitting, be aware of the whole body, how it feels, the whole body breathing, and just that's how we'll finish the practice. Okay? So those are things that you can try, any one of those. Like I said, you can use the flashlight to a specific area of the body, or you can use it. Sometimes people might use it with their hands. There are more sensations in the hands, or the feet is another area that you can focus on. Or on sounds. Sounds is another area that you could focus on, depending on the sounds in your environment. So try some of those and just see what works. And yeah, this is a great comment. I've been having trouble sleeping lately. I used the flashlight method last night. It was very helpful. Excellent. So try applying these practices to those daily challenges we have. You know, there's all sorts of ways that you can do that. And actually, that's a good segue into, you know, stress. You know, we talk about how this stuff helps with stress. Well, think about when you have a stress trigger, okay, and you can bring up something that's causing you a little bit of stress. You don't have to share it, but just you could bring that up if you like. And just notice what happens when you think about this stressor, you know, particularly what happens in your mental activity, what thoughts come up. And these often thoughts are associated with emotions, so they might be tied together, but you might even just think of something simple like, you know, rush hour traffic, or, you know, you're in a very difficult traffic situation and there's some, you know, other person cutting in and out and kind of being unsafe. And so what thoughts are you having? And think about where our thoughts go when that happens. Usually it creates a whole train of thoughts and we begin, you know, a whole storyline. And that's why I want you to begin thinking about what are the stories that you're noticing in your thought processes. And this is really where we turn our attention to focusing on the thoughts themselves, okay? And so really, they call it meta awareness, being aware of our thinking about our thinking. Okay. And the stress is a great example of this, but you can try this, for anything as you just go through the day. What are you thinking about right now as I'm talking? I'm sure you're having a number of thoughts. See if you can notice those thoughts. So you're kind of splitting your attention. I'm talking, you're trying to listen to me, but there's often a background running commentary in our minds that's going on. And you might try to just see if you can pay attention to that. The whole idea here is that as we become aware of our thoughts, we become aware of what thoughts are helpful, what thoughts are unhelpful, what thoughts can we let go of, what thoughts might we want to hang on to. And then we might notice that there are sticky thoughts, certain thought patterns that keep coming up and that get in the way. They're conditioned almost under the surface patterns of thoughts that we have that we've been conditioned to, these actually turn into beliefs, our stronger sets of beliefs that we have. So that's what I want you to begin to pay attention to. And this next graph here is what we do when we bring on the relaxation response, which simply means pausing, maybe doing some deep breathing or a quick little exercise, a mindfulness exercise, or just something to relax you. What we're doing when we do that is we're decoupling from that storyline. We're stepping back from that. We're not getting caught up in the storyline or the plot. We're coming back to this sense of watching it almost as an impartial observer. Even though there are thoughts, see, this is where it gets a little tricky. Even though there are thoughts and we think, well, those thoughts are me, but you can still learn to step back from them, okay? And that's kind of what we're getting into here. So coming back to what our intentions are when we learn to meditate and with all these practices, our intentions may be any number one of these things, anything from relaxing to focusing to stepping back from stress to whatever it is. But really the beauty of all this is to gain insight into some of these things. And the difficulty is that the thoughts are kind of like this. This is a kind of a fun poem. There's a monkey in my mind, swinging on a trapeze, reaching back to the past or leaning into the future, never standing still. Sometimes I want to kill that monkey, shoot it square between the eyes so I won't have to think anymore or feel the pain of worry. But today I thanked her and she jumped down straight into my lap, trapeze still swinging as we sat still. So aside from the image of that, I apologize for the sort of violent image of that, but it's really, what we're talking about our thoughts here, our own thoughts, and that the more we resist some of those thoughts, and if we try to push them away and ignore them and numb them, they're still there. In fact, they get stronger. But if we can learn to kind of, in a sense, welcome them, invite them in, sit on our lap, that's when they become more, well, that's when really we have more control over them. Okay. Like the monkey in the poem here. So, and as you look at this, I've shown this before a number of times. I mean, and I'm going to just reference Thich Nhat Hanh, is a famous Zen master who died not too long ago. I think he was 95. Very well known in Zen Buddhist and mindfulness circles. You may have heard of him. But he describes it this way, that the mind is like a television set with hundreds of channels. So which channel will you turn on? Usually we're so focused on the dramatic story being told that we don't notice that there's always consciousness that receives it. Through mindfulness, we learn to recognize which channel is playing, and we can learn to change the channel. The stories and states, recognizing that all states are simply appearances in our consciousness. So I know that gets a little bit deep there, but I just love that idea of the television channels and being able to, change channels, right? Get the remote out, change the channels. So now just as I'm going to reference part of the book again here, Peak Mind. And she references that there's growing evidence that mindfulness training, and this is in a lot of the research, increases attention and decentering and decreases mind wandering. Okay, so mind wandering happens a lot. In fact, they studied this at Harvard. There's a classic study, and they found that the average person's mind wanders almost 50% of the time. Actually, the number is 47%. That's how often our mind wanders, and that's the average. So that's why I think a lot of you signed up for this class, and you want to strengthen that, because if we can increase or decrease our mind wandering, increase our focus, we can really get some of that time back. So she says, when you're meta aware, or when you're aware of your thinking, you're looking at yourself. You're the object, right? You can't be simultaneously immersed in self-related thinking, that's mind wandering, and reflecting on the self. This is why, as meta-awareness goes up, mind wandering goes down. So it makes sense, because they're two antagonistic processes. The self can't be outside and inside at the same time. So the idea is that we want to create meta-awareness, and that's what we're really introducing today with being aware of our thinking. And mindfulness practice is the way that gets us there. So that's kind of really the point of the last 15 minutes of the class. Because what happens if it goes out of control and we let the mind wandering continue, it gets to feel like this, just really overwhelming and burdensome, right? Or as Mark Twain said, my life has been filled with terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened. So sometimes we think of thinking as the adversary. Kind of gets in the way when we're doing a meditation, right? I mean, sometimes that we can think of that, but thinking is a very natural process. We can't stop thinking. So it's much better to kind of identify thoughts. And thoughts are important. They really help us do many, many things throughout the day, throughout our work life, right? But in mindfulness training, we're not trying to stop thinking. We're trying to cultivate a wise relationship to thoughts. And this is where, just paying attention to them, to being aware of what thoughts, as I said, are helpful or unhelpful. And this is what we'll be practicing this week. So the exercise the main exercise of today's class is called the River of Thoughts. And just as to introduce it, this kind of idea of meta-awareness. So this again is from Peak Mind. Up to this point, our goal has been to make sure that our attention is on a target, right? Like the breath. But now our attention is our attention. And ultimately, the practices we've been working on build meta-awareness, and practice them regularly supports our ability to observe and monitor our own mind. So this next practice is designed to notice moment-to-moment contents of your conscious experience without getting caught up in the thoughts, emotions, and sensations that arise. This is what they call more of an open monitoring service, open monitoring practice. And so it may feel a little bit different, but again, I'll guide you through this. And actually, let me pause for a minute. I'm going to see if I can actually record this as we do it. And that way I can send the recording to you. Okay, so get yourself comfortable, as you're probably used to, into a position that you're comfortable with. Take a moment to adjust your posture. Find that balance between being relaxed but also alert. This is not a practice where we really want to kind of fall asleep and relax too much. So really want to have a nice balance between alertness in the mind and comfort in the body, but don't get too comfortable. Okay, so take a moment. You could even do this practice standing. She suggests you can use the mountain pose, which is simply standing comfortably with your feet shoulder distance apart. Let your arms relax at your sides and your palms out. And you close your eyes, and we can do this sitting though, so that's fine. And so the first step is to find your flashlight and direct it towards the breath. So we'll start there like we've done in the flashlight, and you can point it to any part of the breath you like. So wherever you feel the breath most directly. So just pick a spot. And just continue to breathe nice and easily and naturally. And focus on that one spot. And at any point in the exercise, if you feel you're getting drawn away, caught in a mind loop, you can always anchor back on the breath. You can always use that flashlight to come back to the home base. So that's always there as an option. It kind of stabilizes us if needed. But now I'll invite you to broaden your awareness so that you're not selecting any target object, and instead use the metaphor of your mind being like a river. You're standing on the riverbank, watching the water flow by. And imagine your thoughts and memories and sensations and emotions, whatever arises, as if they're flowing past you. See if you can notice what appears there, but don't engage with it. Don't fish it up, chase it, or elaborate on it. Just let it flow by. So just do that for a while. Just watch the river of thoughts, letting them flow by without getting caught up in them if possible. And we're just noticing them, okay? We're not labeling them at this point. We're just really noticing them come and go, flowing by on the river. Your job right now is not to be making distinctions between which content is useful or relevant and what's mind wandering. You're not even going to try to stop your mind from wandering. The river will keep flowing. There isn't anything you can or need to do about that. This is the key to open monitoring. You allow your mind to do what it will do. Just let whatever is happening go on happening. Your job is simply to observe that flow at a little bit of a distance without engagement or participation. And I'll be quiet again, just to let you follow the river of your thoughts. Now, you can always come back to the flashlight and the breath. Remember that they're always there. If you have difficulty with any part of this, you can always shine the flashlight back on that point of the breath. But what you can do also is you can imagine your breath sensations as a boulder in the middle of all that flowing water. So rest your attention on that stable, steady object, hanging on to the boulder. And when you feel ready, you can broaden your attention again and go back to this open monitoring. So you'll notice it's quite different than focusing with the flashlight or the body scan. And it may take a little bit of practice. So just keep noticing what comes up in their thoughts. You might have noticed some of those thoughts really do capture your attention and they kind of suck you in a little bit. But some are quite neutral. They don't really do too much. Some are kind of like, very strong and dramatic. Okay. But that's the idea, is simply to notice patterns. And as you do more and more of this practice, you might notice these patterns a bit more. And that's what we'll do this coming week. So when you're ready, you can open your eyes slowly, gradually, just finishing this meditation. And you can recenter yourself, feel your body as you're sitting, feel your feet on the floor. And thank you for your practice. So that's the river of thoughts. And, sometimes people have a little trouble with this because it is different. So just asking you the question as an inquiry, how are you right now? What's going on inside? What do you think about that? Give me some feedback in the chat. What was it like to put your attention on your attention, so to speak? What did you think of that? Any feedback? Any questions? Any wonderings about where this is going and what this is all about? It gets a little bit different. She good, yeah. So nice comments, excellent. Yeah, very good. Thank you. You can all read those. Thank you for those comments. So I wanted to just also mention, she includes in this book this great story about her dog, and it's really illustrates quite well what this is all about. So she talks about she's trying to meditate, and her dog is a small Lhasa Apso, kind of a little yapper, right? And the dog stands at the window and barks at everything that's going by, right? And anything that captures the dog's attention, right? She's just yapping and barking. And Amishi, who's trying to meditate, is getting irritated. But the dog, is distracting her. But then all of a sudden she realizes that what she's doing is a lot like what the dog is doing, okay? So let's see, she puts it this way. She was getting irritated, and it dawned on her, I'm doing the exact same thing that he is. I'm sitting here watching for what's different on my whiteboard, my attention, and he's watching for what's different in that rectangle of window that's available to him. That's exactly what open monitoring is. Sure, maybe I'm not actually barking at stuff, but it's kind of the same thing. The dog barks when he notices something. And while I might get stuck or emotionally reactive about something I notice internally. And so she gets up, she closes the curtain, and the dog stops barking and lays down. But she says, this is a key point, we can't just close the curtain on our thoughts. We also can't sit at the window and bark at every passing thing, but we can learn to notice it. And that's really all we're doing. We can learn to notice it and let it go. Okay. And so that's kind of the point of the practice. And now we're getting towards the end. I think I've just crossed over. So I have another quote here from William James, and then a quick poem. So the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. So that's really the essence of what we're talking about. And if you can change your mind, you can change your life. And I'll be sending these again as usual. And here, this poem, this is kind of what to me, this is, I think, the useful practice. 10,000 flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, a cool breeze in summer, snow in winter. If your mind isn't clouded by unnecessary things, this is the best season of your life. So leave you with that. And I put this one up here about the kryptonite and the stress again, because remember we said stress is something that gets in the way of our attention and the way of our being able to focus. So it really helps if we learn to look at our thoughts as ways to step back from stress, to not be in a reactive mode, to have that little bit of distance so that we don't get triggered. Okay, so that can be helpful. And then the practices, the daily practices, I'll do this real quick and I'll let you go. Formal practices, so you can try the thought practice. I'm going to send you that one we just did, the river of thoughts, but there's also a couple of links. And the informal practice is to notice unpleasant and pleasant events as you go through your day, and notice what arises, notice what storyline, notice what thoughts you have, notice, and just pay attention to those. Okay, that's the informal practice. You can link into this. There's a little bit of a different meditation on thoughts. There's a rain meditation, which is a different thing that you can try. And then the 3-minute breathing space is also kind of a quick practice. So try one of those, and that's your practice for the week. And next week is our last class. But I think what we will do, maybe about a month later, we'll have a kind of a follow-up session and just see how everybody's doing. Okay. So with that, I'll stop sharing and say thank you very much for being with me again today. Any last questions before I close things out? Sorry, I went a couple minutes over.
Nope.
Okay, good. Appreciate your time, and hope this is helpful, and I'll see you next week. And I'll be on for a few more minutes, just as I'm going to stop the record.
Have a good week.
You too. I'll be on for a few more minutes if you do have a question. It's not letting me stop that for some reason.
Thanks, Bud.
Thanks, Art. Nice to see you.